This is Contemporary Chinese Volume 2 and Lesson 6, and this is Dialogue 2. So we've got two characters, Li Xiaoyu and Martin, who are language partners, and they're having a chat in what I believe is the USA. And so Li Xiaoyu asks the question, 你家在东部还是西部? It's a fairly basic question. I don't think you'll have any trouble understanding that. But I just need to make the point that these two words, 东部 and 西部, are quite important because they're different from when we're talking about the north and the south of a country. So we mentioned in the lecture today, for example, that 北方 and 南方 mean the north and south of a country, and they also represent a kind of not only a geographic but also cultural, linguistic divide and customs in both places. You know, everyday customs and habits and so on are different. So when we want to talk about, so we don't live in the north part or the south part of the country, but we live in the east or the west part of the country, then we need to use these expressions 东部 and 西部. There is the expression 东方 and 西方, but they have a different meaning in Chinese. So we've got 东方, okay, and we have 西方, and what they equate to is the east and the west. And you notice that I put the east and west in capital letters. So really what we're referring to here is the east in the sense of those countries that form up, you know, I guess the east in terms of Asia and so on, so China, Japan, Korea, etc. And then the west in terms of the kind of liberal democracies of the Western world, so the USA, Australia, England, Canada, etc. So 东方 and 西方 refer to those concepts as against parts of a country. So again, finally, just to emphasize, if you want to say the north part of the country, it's 北方, south part of the country, 南方, the east part is 东部, the west part is 西部. Okay, so then Martin goes on and says 我家在东部. So I think that's fairly straightforward, no explanation needed there. Li Xiaoyu asks 你家大不大? Again, I don't think that's a hard one for you to understand. Is your house or your home? The word 家, as we know, can mean both, house or home. So, you know, is your home big or not? And in that case, really, it's referring to the building. Ma Ding says 比较大. 我家是一个2层小楼，一层是客厅和餐厅，2层是卧室，小楼后面是一个车库。So he says that it's reasonably big. So this is the house, it's reasonably big. He says my home or my house is a 2-story, 是一个2层小楼 2-story house. You could even say 是个2层楼的房子，是一个2层楼的房子。So it's a 2-story house. 一层是客厅和餐厅. So 1 floor is the 客厅, the lounge or living room. And literally 客厅 here, 客厅 means guest hall. So 客 we've seen before in the expression, for example, 请客 when you invite somebody for a meal. 厅 we've seen before in 餐厅, meaning a canteen or so if we're referring to a university, for example, or a company, then that would be canteen. But if we're referring to a private home, then that would refer to the dining room. So 客厅 is the guest hall and 餐厅 is the meal hall, but in terms of a house, it's a room. 2层是卧室. So the second floor is 卧室, bedroom. So 室 we've come across before with the word 教室. Just forgive me for a moment. I'll turn on the power. 教室. So we've learned that word before. Jiao shi. It's best to get the right one. Jiao shi. Okay, which is classroom. We've learned that before. So we've got shi as a room, and in the case of classroom, 教室, 教 being to teach, so it's a teaching room. 卧室, 卧 is the word for to lie down. So this is a lie down room or a bedroom. Okay, 小楼后面是一个车库. Now here they keep referring to 小楼 being like a small building, and it's their way of expressing the kind of houses that we live in the West, where in China they tend to live in, particularly in the city areas anyhow, in high-rise apartments. In the West we tend to live mostly in standalone houses. So this expression 小楼 is referring to a Western style house. 小楼后面. Okay, so we've got the word 后面, which we've learned several lessons back, meaning behind. So behind the house is a 车库, 车库, which means a garage. So again, if you look at the word for 车, that's fairly straightforward. We know that. If you look at 库, if you look at the outside part, so that's 厂, which is like a factory or a warehouse, if you like, a building that would contain something like that. And then inside it, we've parked our 车, so there's another little 车 in there. So that might help you remember those characters. So 车库 is a garage. And that is garage in the sense of one at home where we park our car, not a garage where you go and have your car repaired or where you get fuel. It's one that you would have attached to your house. Li Xiaoyu then asks, 你家有院子吗? 你家有院子吗? So 院子 is a yard, as in front yard, backyard. And actually the expressions specifically for front yard and backyard are 前院子. Be nice to get 前院子 for front yard and 后院子 for backyard. Okay, 前院子后院子. And Ma Ding says 有, 我家前面是一个小院子. Okay, so there's a small yard in the front. 院子里有很多树和花. So again, I think that's fairly straightforward for you guys. So in the yard, there are a lot of 树, trees, 和花, flowers. Li Xiaoyu then continues to ask, 从你家到学校远不远? Okay, so 远, far, 远不远, is it far? But it's the important thing here is this construction of 从 and 到. Okay, and again, this is one of those plug and play expressions. So between the 从 and the 到, you put the place number 1. Okay, and then after 到, sorry, that's 学校. Then you put place number 2. Let's get rid of that. Okay, 到学校, so that's number 2. And then you can ask the question, 远不远, or you can make the statement, 很远, 不远. So from your home to the school, is it far? 还可以. 还可以. Now we've come across this a number of times where 还可以 means, yeah, in this case, yeah, not too bad, not too far. It's not close, but it's not too far. And by the same token, it's not very far. 还可以. 我每天开车去学校. So we know 每天 means every day. 开车 means to drive. 开, as we know, we've now come across it in a couple of different situations. One is 开门, so, open the door. In the medical scenario, we learned 开处方, meaning to write out a prescription. And in this particular case, it means to drive a vehicle. 开车去学校. So 开车 is a verb, 去 is a verb, all right? And the first verb describes how the second verb is done. It's like English, to drive a car to go to school. And here also 学校, generally speaking, it's in this context, it's referring to a university. And I think I've mentioned this before, that in China often university students and teachers and staff and so on will refer to the university as 我们学校, our school, but they're referring to the university. Okay, so that's the end of that idea, and there's a comma which says, right, so I've finished with that part of what I want to say. Now I'm moving on to the next part. 大概需要半个小时. So 大概 we are very familiar with. Again, approximately, around about. 需要 to need. Now in terms of time, we would probably translate it as it takes a certain amount of time. But the word 需要 itself means to need something. So it could be to need something as in, 需要帮助, you need help, but it can also mean to need in terms of how much time something takes. So it needs half an hour, 半个小时, 半个小时. But we would probably say it takes approximately half an hour, 半个小时. Li Xiaoyu then asks, 你家离海远吗? 你家离海远吗? So we have this word 离, and I think we've mentioned this in previous lessons. 离 differs from 从 in that 离 means away from. 离 it means away from. So if we're asking the question, how far away is something from something else, then we use the expression 离. So here we've got the two locations, 你家 and 海. We put the 离 in the middle. 你家离海远吗? Is your home far away from the sea or the ocean? Ma Ding says 不远. 我常常去海边. So we should be clear about what 常常 means now, often, and 海边 meaning seaside. Well, it's literally seaside, sea, and then 边 is side. So I often go to the seaside, and in Australia we might say to the beach. 吃完晚饭，我就跟安娜一起去海边散步. So here he says 吃完晚饭. So he's using this combination of the verb 吃, which is the main action, the main verb, and a second verb 完, meaning to finish something. And we've talked about this before. You can place a second verb after the main verb, and that describes the state of the action or the result of the action. And in this case, the result is finishing, eating. But also equally here, we could say, I better put it down here because that thing keeps popping up in the way. 吃了晚饭，我就 blah 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 blah. Okay, so 吃完晚饭 and 吃了晚饭 both mean the same thing. And so my point here is that this 了, when it's placed like that after the verb, which is there, 吃, and before a plain unadorned noun, 晚饭. So we've not added any other information to 晚饭. It's just plain old 晚饭. When the 了 is put in the middle, that means after that is done. 我就跟安娜一起去海边散步. Now the 就, here it basically means that after this first thing is done, then pretty much straight away I go and the next thing I do is, well, in this case, go to the beach, go to the seaside with Anna to 散步. 散步. So 散步 means to go for a stroll. 散 is a word that means, it has a couple of different meanings, one of them of which is when something is kind of dispersed around the place. But when it's combined together with 步 is a step. So when you walk, you take a step. Okay. So 散步 together means to go for a stroll or go for a walk. So this whole thing is, after I finished eating dinner, I then, with Anna together, go to the seaside for a walk. And obviously you reorganize that into proper English. Li Xiaoyu then asks, 你女朋友也喜欢去海边? I think for you guys that's easy enough to understand. Then Ma Ding says, 女朋友谁是我女朋友? And again, I think you guys don't have an issue with that. Who is my girlfriend? And Li Xiaoyu then says, 安娜不是你的女朋友吗? So isn't Anna your girlfriend? And then Ma Ding says, 不是，安娜是我的狗. Anna is my dog. And this is the point when you're meant to laugh hysterically, because this is the punchline.